When we are discussing these reasons, Mr. Sultan Rashid, I would like you to shed some light on, when we were just talking about Nakba, how literally Israel was created in a bath of blood, massacring millions and millions of Palestinians, displacing them from their homeland, and now that greater plan, the greater Israel plan, is still moving on, and in so many ways we are sort of complicit in all this process. So why, in your view, the Muslim world or Arab world is more compromised today than what it was in 1948?
Well, one of the things that many of the speakers already mentioned, and I would like to speak a little bit regarding the history, and it is definitely that the expulsion that the Palestinians have gone through, it is quite shocking that such a thing can occur in modern history. And from the outset, it looks as if Israel, along with the Arab world, they want to move forward. And they want to put Palestine in the past history. In essence, they have no problem in Palestine not being an entity any longer, as is evident by their actions. Because we need to realize that even in Gaza, most of the inhabitants of Gaza are 70% refugees. So most of the individuals who reside in Gaza have been born into parents who are refugees. They have been refugees for decades. Many have been refugees for 3 generations. And most of these individuals, they were expelled from the land that Israel now occupies. Not only the occupation that occurred after 1967, but the occupation that was imparted into law in 1947, as is known by the popular word is known by the partition resolution. And most of the individuals that reside in Gaza, they do come from, which is nowadays considered Israel territory, not the occupied land. And so what it seems to be the case is that Israel, along with certain Arab nations, they were more happy, they were way too happy for this to just simply go under the bus. And for all of these things to just simply occur, and for the international community and for the voices of the Palestinians not to be heard. And it seems quite evident from certain interactions and certain media footage of Netanyahu in particular, that he seemed as though he thought himself personally that Palestine was done and dusted with, as if he had already conquered it de facto. And that was the case in which how the international relationships between these nation states were working, based upon obviously their own self-interest or national interest, however way you want to put it. But what was not in the plan was what happened on 7th October, because Israel never in its wildest imaginations would it have thought that Gaza still had the capacity to do such an attack, and which is quite ironic because Netanyahu himself personally gave aid to Hamas. It's not as if Hamas simply came into a vacuum. And they personally supported Hamas's election when Hamas won in Gaza. And they also gave them aid in the shape of funds, and some reports even say in the shape of weapons. However, they grew, I think, a bit too arrogant by their national standing, knowing that the Arab states are not doing anything, and knowing that they are backed both militarily, because obviously supplying weapons to a nation that is occupying a force is aiding it militarily, even if you do not put your own boots on the ground. It is de facto doing the same thing. It's giving them weapons that they then use for genocide, which obviously makes the United States itself complicit in this genocide. And in terms of why the Muslim states, and I actually do not prefer the word Muslim, they're just nation states. They work on their own secular self-interest, and there's nothing Islamic about these states. Because if there was something Islamic about these states, then there would be an intervention. Because there is no legal reason for why there isn't an intervention. If we want to talk about the South Africa case in the ICJ, but there's a more recent advisory ruling that the ICJ gave to the United Nations, in which they say clearly that there should be measures implemented in the security wing of the United Nations to immediately end the occupation of the West Bank and of East Jerusalem, and to resettle all of the settlers that have occupied these territories back into Israeli territories. So obviously, how we know that the Security Council is by no means a democratic system at all, and nations have veto power, and obviously the United States will veto it. However, given the fact that such rulings are coming out and they are neither new, that it is quite evident that a war crime has been committed in front of us. And the only difference between this and the war crime that the Nazis committed in World War II is that the Nazis did not televise it.